Before we dive into today's story, let me ask you something. Where are you all watching from? Comment below, I'd love to know. And while you're here, make sure to subscribe to Unheard Stories for gripping tales like this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now imagine this. You're sitting at home enjoying a rare quiet afternoon, when a knock at the door changes everything. That's exactly what happened to Mike, our protagonist, a hardworking man with a routine as predictable as the ticking clock on his living room wall. Mike works the night shift at a distribution warehouse, hauling boxes and managing inventory while the rest of the world sleeps. His afternoons are usually spent catching up on rest in his modest home, nestled in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Mike thought he had a simple, peaceful life. He had been married to Lisa for 6 years, and while their relationship wasn't as fiery as it had once been, it was stable, or so he believed. Lisa spent her days doing yoga, catching up with friends, and occasionally working part-time as a freelance graphic designer. They had their routines, their shared responsibilities, and their comfortable silences. It wasn't perfect, but it was home. But that afternoon, Mike's world shifted. He had just sunk into his recliner, cradling a cup of reheated coffee, when the sharp sound of knocking broke the silence. Standing at the door was Amanda, his neighbor from 2 doors down. Amanda wasn't the kind of person who dropped by without a reason. She was friendly enough, always waving hello and making small talk about the weather, but she also had a knack for delivering observations wrapped in an unnerving mix of concern and sweetness. Today, Amanda's expression wasn't friendly. It was serious. She clutched the straps of her oversized tote bag like a lifeline, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Hey Amanda," Mike said, trying to shake off the grogginess from his interrupted nap. "What's up?" Amanda hesitated, her eyes darting nervously behind him as if she didn't want anyone else to overhear. Finally, she took a deep breath and lowered her voice. "Mike, I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but you're usually not home in the afternoons, right?" Mike frowned. "No, I work late shifts." "Why?" Her cheeks flushed and she looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "Well, it's just that. I've been hearing some noises coming from your house." "Romantic noises?" For a moment, Mike couldn't process what she was saying. He stared at her, his mind blank. "You mean from my house?" he asked, his voice steady but tinged with disbelief. Amanda nodded, her expression conflicted. "Yes. It's been happening a lot lately, always in the afternoons. I thought you'd want to know. What would you do if you were in Mike's shoes?" This story only gets more intense from here. Stick around to find out how Mike uncovered the shocking truth and delivered a revenge no one saw coming. Amanda's words hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and ominous. Mike tried to brush it off, giving her a polite nod and a strained smile. "Thanks for letting me know," he said, keeping his voice steady. But as Amanda walked away, her words echoed in his mind. "Romantic noises. From your house." For the rest of the afternoon, Mike couldn't focus. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe Amanda had misheard, or maybe it was just the TV. Lisa often played shows during the day to pass the time. And yet, something about Amanda's hesitancy, the redness in her cheeks, and the way she glanced at the ground made it clear she wasn't exaggerating. That evening Mike said nothing to Lisa. She walked through the door after her usual yoga class, tossing her bag on the counter and chattering about how crowded the studio had been. Her tone was light and casual, as if nothing was wrong. Mike forced himself to nod along, his mind racing. If Amanda was mistaken, bringing it up would only cause unnecessary tension. But if she was right, confronting Lisa without proof would give her the chance to cover her tracks. Lying awake that night, Mike stared at the ceiling, his thoughts swirling. Lisa lay beside him, her breathing slow and even. How could he figure out what was happening without tipping her off? He needed to be smart about this. If she was hiding something, he was going to find out. The next day, Mike woke up with a sense of resolve. After Lisa left for her morning yoga session, he grabbed his keys and drove to an electronics store across town. He spent the better part of an hour browsing the aisles, searching for something discreet. Finally, he found what he needed, a set of sleek modern security cameras. They were small enough to hide, yet powerful enough to capture crystal-clear footage. Perfect. Back home, Mike installed the cameras meticulously. One went in the living room, another in the kitchen, and a third near the front door. He even placed outdoor cameras above the garage and near the back patio, ensuring there wasn't a blind spot. He blended them seamlessly with the decor, tucking one behind a plant, another near a picture frame, so they wouldn't draw attention. By the time Lisa returned, Mike was back on the couch, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. When she asked what he'd done all day, he shrugged. "Just cleaned up a bit," he said casually. Lisa didn't press further, and Mike felt a twinge of relief. So far so good. Over the next few days, Mike monitored the camera feeds on his phone. The system sent him notifications whenever it detected motion, allowing him to check in discreetly while he was at work or resting. At first there was nothing unusual. Lisa spent most of her afternoons scrolling through her phone, lounging on the couch, or preparing dinner. If she was hiding something, she was doing an excellent job of keeping it under wraps. By the third day, Mike began to question himself. Maybe Amanda had been wrong. Maybe she'd overheard something from a nearby house and mistaken it for theirs. He wanted to believe that. He wanted to believe Lisa was still the woman he had married, the woman he trusted with his whole heart. But his doubt didn't last long. On the fourth day, his phone buzzed with a notification. Motion detected, driveway. Mike opened the app, his pulse quickening. The camera showed a tall, broad-shouldered man walking up the driveway. He wore jeans and a button-down shirt, his sunglasses pushed up into his dark hair. There was something cocky about the way he moved, like he owned the place. Mike watched as the man strolled to the front door. He didn't knock. Instead, Lisa opened it before he even reached the porch. She greeted him with a smile Mike hadn't seen directed at him in years. She was wearing yoga pants and a fitted tank top, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. Casual but effortlessly alluring. Mike's stomach churned as he switched to the living room camera feed. He watched the man step inside and sit on the couch. For a moment they just talked. Lisa was laughing, her eyes bright in a way Mike hadn't seen in months. Then she touched the man's arm and he leaned closer. Their laughter faded into silence as they kissed. A deep, lingering kiss that left Mike staring at the screen, unable to look away. He couldn't process it. He had prepared himself for the possibility that Amanda was right, but seeing it unfold in real time was a different kind of pain. In his home. On his couch. That night, Lisa came home as if nothing had happened. She kissed Mike on the cheek, asked about his day, and chatted about her yoga session. Mike played along, forcing a smile as his chest burned with unspoken rage. He needed to stay calm to bide his time. If Lisa thought she had gotten away with it, she wouldn't suspect what was coming next. Over the next few days, the pattern continued. Lisa's lover, Mike, had started calling him the intruder in his mind, arrived like clockwork, always greeted by Lisa's bright smile. Each interaction felt like another stab to Mike's heart, but he kept recording, compiling evidence for the confrontation that would inevitably come. Lisa had no idea her perfect little secret was about to come crashing down. Mike's worst fears were confirmed as the camera feeds painted a vivid picture of betrayal he never imagined he would face. Over the next few days, the scenes that played out on his phone left him reeling. Every motion alert sent his heart racing, and every notification brought another dagger to his chest. What he saw not only shattered his trust in Lisa but also left him questioning everything about their life together. The first time Mike saw Lisa welcome Caleb into their home, he felt like the air had been knocked out of him. Caleb walked up the driveway with an air of confidence that made Mike's stomach churn. He didn't knock or hesitate. Lisa opened the door before he reached it, her face lighting up in a way Mike hadn't seen in years. It was a smile that once belonged to him, a smile full of warmth, excitement, and longing. Lisa was dressed casually but alluringly, yoga pants, a snug tank top, and her hair pulled back into a messy bun. Mike couldn't remember the last time she had put in that kind of effort for him. She stepped aside to let Caleb in, glancing over her shoulder as though checking to make sure the coast was clear. Inside, the cameras captured everything. Caleb sprawled on the couch like he owned the place, his arm casually draped over the backrest. Lisa sat beside him, her posture relaxed, her laughter unrestrained. She looked alive, vibrant, and carefree, a version of herself that Mike hadn't seen in years. At first they just talked. Their voices were animated, full of shared jokes and intimate exchanges. But then Lisa leaned in, resting her hand on Caleb's arm. He turned to her, cupping her cheek as their laughter faded into a kiss. It wasn't a casual peck, it was deep, lingering, and passionate. Mike watched, unable to look away as Lisa's hands slid around Caleb's neck, pulling him closer. The cameras captured more than Mike had expected, or wanted, to see. Each day, Caleb arrived at the same time, greeted by Lisa's radiant smile. They didn't hold back, not even in the home Mike had worked so hard to provide. On the couch, in the kitchen, even by the back patio, Lisa and Caleb acted as though they were the only two people in the world. Mike's hands trembled as he saved clip after clip, each one more damning than the last. It wasn't just the physical intimacy that broke him, it was the casual ease with which they carried on. They laughed, whispered, and exchanged inside jokes, building a world that excluded Mike entirely. Watching them felt like watching strangers. Lisa was a woman he no longer recognized. The emotional toll was unbearable. Mike tried to stay calm, but each new recording felt like another stab to the heart. His thoughts spiraled. How long had this been going on? Did she ever love him, or was it all a lie? The home he had worked so hard to build had become a stage for betrayal, and he couldn't escape the sense of humiliation that followed him everywhere he went. At night, Mike lay awake, staring at the ceiling while Lisa slept beside him, completely unaware that her lies were unraveling. He felt a mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief, but most of all he felt hollow. Lisa had taken something irreplaceable from him, the trust that had been the foundation of their marriage, and shattered it beyond repair. What hurt most were the conversations. The cameras didn't just capture their physical closeness, they recorded their words, and those words stung more than Mike had anticipated. One afternoon, as Lisa and Caleb lounged on the couch, she let out a dramatic sigh. "He's so controlling," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Always asking where I'm going, what I'm doing. I can't breathe with him around." Mike's jaw clenched as he replayed the clip. Controlling? He had given Lisa freedom, never questioning her trips to yoga or her long afternoons spent working at home. He was killing himself with 12-hour shifts to provide for her, and this was how she described him? Another day, Lisa laughed as she scrolled through her phone, showing Caleb something on the screen. "Look at this," she said, her tone filled with amusement. "Everyone thinks he's this hard-working, perfect husband. If they only knew." Caleb chuckled, his arms slung casually over the back of the couch. "You could tell them if you wanted." "Oh, I already have," Lisa replied with a grin. "I've planted a few seeds. They'll figure it out eventually." Mike's heart sank as he listened. It wasn't enough that Lisa was cheating, she was actively painting him as the villain, spinning lies to justify her actions and tarnish his reputation. The woman he had loved, the woman he thought he knew, was mocking him behind his back while playing the victim to anyone who would listen. The breaking point came one Friday afternoon. Lisa and Caleb were sitting on the couch, laughing as usual. Lisa pulled up a text message on her phone and showed it to Caleb, her tone laced with amusement. Mike couldn't hear every word, but he caught enough to know what was happening. Lisa was bragging about how oblivious Mike was, joking that she could probably set the house on fire, and he wouldn't notice. That was it. Mike couldn't take it anymore. The betrayal was no longer just an affair, it was a systematic dismantling of his trust, his reputation, and his dignity. Lisa wasn't just cheating on him, she was mocking him, tearing him down in every way imaginable. That evening, Lisa came home like nothing had happened. She kissed Mike on the cheek, chatted about her yoga session, and scrolled through her phone as they ate dinner. Mike played along, forcing himself to smile and nod while rage simmered beneath the surface. But inside, Mike was done. Lisa thought she had fooled him, but she had underestimated him completely. He wasn't going to confront her in anger or give her the chance to manipulate the narrative. Instead, he was going to make sure she faced the consequences of her actions in a way she would never forget. The betrayal had left Mike shattered, but it had also given him clarity. Lisa and Caleb thought they were untouchable, but they were about to learn just how wrong they were. Mike had the evidence, the resolve, and a plan. Revenge was coming, and it would be epic. Mike spent the weekend meticulously piecing together the story that would become Lisa's undoing. He wasn't interested in petty vengeance, he wanted the truth to speak for itself. With each clip, text message, and recording he saved, his resolve grew stronger. Lisa thought she was untouchable, spinning lies and weaving a narrative that painted her as the victim. Mike was determined to shatter that illusion, not just for himself but for everyone who had bought into her deceit. Mike's first step was to organize the evidence. The videos captured from his hidden cameras were damning enough. Lisa welcoming Caleb into their home, laughing and kissing on the couch, and even mocking Mike during their private conversations. But the texts and recordings added another layer. They revealed not only Lisa's infidelity but also her deliberate attempts to damage Mike's reputation. One recording played over and over in Mike's head. "Everyone thinks he's this perfect husband," Lisa had said with a laugh. "If they only knew." Caleb had smirked, playing along, while Lisa planted seeds of doubt among her friends and neighbors. Mike saved each file into a folder labeled proof on his laptop. He knew that once he hit send there would be no turning back. This wasn't just about exposing Lisa, it was about reclaiming his dignity and setting the record straight. On a quiet evening, Mike decided it was time to confront Lisa. She came home from her usual yoga session, greeted him with her practiced smile, and tossed her bag onto the counter. As she poured herself a glass of water, Mike spoke, his tone calm but firm. "Lisa, we need to talk." She froze for a moment before turning around, her expression wary. "What's wrong?" Mike didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled out his phone and opened a video, pausing it on the image of Lisa kissing Caleb on their couch. He handed it to her silently. Lisa's face went pale as she stared at the screen. What is this?" she stammered, her voice trembling. "You tell me," Mike said, crossing his arms. "I've been watching for weeks, Lisa. Every time he comes over. Every time you lie to my face. I've seen it all." For a moment, Lisa was speechless. Then, as if flipping a switch, she shifted into defense mode. "This isn't what it looks like, Mike," she said, her voice rising. "You don't understand. I was lonely. You're always working. What did you expect?" Mike's jaw tightened. "I expected you to respect me. To respect our marriage. But instead, you brought him into our home and turned me into the bad guy." Lisa's expression hardened. "You're not perfect, Mike. You're gone all the time. You're distant. What did you think was going to happen?" Mike held up a hand to silence her. "Save it. I don't want to hear your excuses. I've heard it all on the recordings. I know what you've been saying about me behind my back. This isn't just about the affair, it's about everything you've done to tear me down." Lisa's eyes filled with tears, but Mike felt nothing but anger. "You want to make me the villain? Fine. But let's see how you like it when everyone knows the truth." The following Friday, Mike prepared to expose everything. He logged into the neighborhood group chat, the same one Lisa had used to spread her false narratives. He typed a short, damning message. "To anyone who's heard rumors about my marriage, here's the truth. I didn't want to do this, but lies only thrive in the dark. The videos speak for themselves." He attached the folder containing clips of Lisa's affair, screenshots of her texts, and recordings of her conversations. For a moment, his finger hovered over the send button. He thought about the life they had built, the years they had spent together, and the pain this would cause. But then he remembered her betrayal, her laughter at his expense, and the lies she had told. With a deep breath, he hit send. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The group chat, usually reserved for discussions about block parties and garage sales, exploded with activity. Messages poured in, each one more shocked than the last. "Oh my God, is this real? I can't believe she would do this in your own home. Wait, is that Caleb? From 2 streets over?" The revelation sent ripples through the neighborhood. People who had once been friendly with Lisa began to distance themselves, their polite smiles replaced with judgmental stares. Even Amanda, who had first tipped Mike off, chimed in to validate his story. "I heard the noises myself," she wrote. "Mike deserves better than this." By the end of the evening, Lisa's carefully crafted image was in tatters. Her phone buzzed incessantly with messages, some from friends offering half-hearted support and others demanding explanations. Mike watched as Lisa paced the house, her face pale and her hands trembling. "You had no right to do this," she shouted, her voice cracking. "This is our private life." Mike remained calm, leaning back in his chair. "Private life? You made it public the second you brought him into our home. I just made sure everyone saw the full story." The fallout wasn't limited to Lisa. Caleb, her lover, became a target of the neighborhood's disdain. People whispered about his audacity, his willingness to disrespect another man's home. He tried to smooth things over, even showing up at Mike's doorstep to explain, but Mike shut him down without a second thought. "You didn't just disrespect me," Mike said coldly. "You disrespected my home and my marriage. There's no making this right. Get off my property." Caleb left with his tail between his legs, his confidence shattered. Within days he stopped showing up in the neighborhood altogether. For Lisa, the humiliation was unbearable. The friends she had once confided in began to ghost her, unwilling to be associated with her now public betrayal. Even her family, who had once adored Mike, reached out to express their disappointment. By the end of the week, Lisa was a shell of the woman she had been. Her defiance had crumbled, replaced by tears and pleas for forgiveness. But Mike wasn't interested. He handed her the divorce papers he had been preparing and told her firmly, "This is where it ends." Mike's revenge wasn't about anger, it was about justice. Lisa and Caleb had tried to make him the villain, but in the end, the truth prevailed. And the fallout was only just beginning. The fallout from Mike's revelation hit Lisa like a tidal wave, leaving her world in ruins. For years, she had carefully cultivated an image of herself as a devoted wife and active member of the community. That image, along with the trust and respect of her neighbors, disintegrated overnight. Lisa was no stranger to gossip, but being at the center of it was something else entirely. Everywhere she went, she felt the weight of judgmental stares. Friends who had once chatted with her over coffee now avoided her, their smiles replaced with cold indifference. Even the neighbors who tried to remain polite struggled to mask their disgust. By Saturday morning, Lisa had retreated into the guest room, refusing to face the outside world. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages, some demanding explanations, others cutting ties outright. Her carefully curated social media accounts became battlegrounds, with comments pouring in from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Lisa's once vibrant demeanor faded into a hollow shell. She stopped attending yoga classes, skipped neighborhood events, and spent most of her time pacing the house or scrolling through her phone in a state of quiet panic. Mike, meanwhile, remained composed. He wasn't cruel, but he also wasn't sympathetic. He watched as Lisa unraveled, feeling a grim sense of validation. She had mocked him, betrayed him, and dragged his name through the mud. Now the tables had turned, and the weight of her actions was crashing down on her. Caleb, too, found himself caught in the crossfire. His confident smirk had vanished, replaced by a deer-in-the-headlights look whenever he encountered anyone from the neighborhood. The man who had strutted up Mike's driveway like he owned the place now avoided the area altogether. His house, 2 streets over, became eerily quiet. But Caleb wasn't ready to go down without a fight. On Sunday afternoon, Mike heard a knock at his door. He opened it to find Caleb standing on the porch, his posture tense, his expression strained. "Mike, can we talk?" Caleb asked, his voice low. Mike folded his arms, blocking the doorway. "We have nothing to talk about." "Look, man," Caleb started, glancing over his shoulder as if worried someone might see him. "I didn't want any of this. Lisa told me things were complicated between you two. I didn't know." "Don't finish that sentence," Mike snapped, his voice like ice. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You disrespected me, my home, and my marriage. There's no making this right." Caleb shifted uncomfortably, his hands fidgeting. "I just want to make amends." "You can't," Mike said firmly. "Now get off my property." Without another word, Mike slammed the door in Caleb's face. Watching him walk away, shoulders slumped, was a small but satisfying victory. The next step in Mike's plan was the most definitive: divorce. Over the past week, he had worked with a lawyer to prepare the paperwork, gathering every piece of evidence he had collected. On Monday evening after dinner, Mike sat at the dining table, the stack of papers in front of him. When Lisa wandered in, her eyes bloodshot from crying, she froze at the sight. "What's this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Divorce papers," Mike said simply, sliding them across the table. "It's over, Lisa." Her hands shook as she picked up the folder, flipping through the pages. "Mike, please," she whispered. "We can fix this. I know I messed up, but we can work through it. I'll do whatever it takes." Mike shook his head, his tone firm but calm. "There's nothing to fix. You didn't just betray me, you tore down everything we built together. This marriage is over." Tears streamed down Lisa's face, but Mike didn't waver. He had spent weeks mourning the loss of their relationship, grappling with the pain of her betrayal. Now he was done. This wasn't about anger anymore, it was about self-respect. Over the next few days, Lisa made several attempts to appeal to Mike. She tried every tactic in the book: tears, apologies, and even blame-shifting. She claimed loneliness had driven her actions, that she felt neglected and unappreciated. But Mike wasn't moved. "You had a choice, Lisa," he told her one evening as they sat across from each other in the living room. "You could have talked to me, told me how you felt. But instead, you lied, you mocked me, and you brought another man into our home. That's on you." Lisa's pleas grew more desperate as reality set in. She knew she had lost Caleb. He wasn't responding to her messages, likely focused on salvaging his own reputation. Her friends were gone, her neighbors had turned against her, and now her marriage was ending. By Wednesday, Lisa finally signed the divorce papers. She handed them to Mike without a word, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Mike felt no joy in the moment, only relief. This chapter of his life was finally coming to a close. Lisa's humiliation wasn't just public, it was personal. Her support network had crumbled, leaving her isolated and alone. Meanwhile, Mike began the process of rebuilding his life, determined to come out stronger on the other side. Though the pain of betrayal lingered, Mike knew one thing for certain. He had reclaimed his dignity and his peace of mind, and that was something Lisa could never take away. With the divorce finalized and Lisa gone, Mike found himself in a strange but liberating place. The weight of her betrayal, the public fallout, and the legal battle was gone. What remained was the task of rebuilding his life, a task he approached with quiet determination. The first thing Mike did was reclaim his home. He spent days deep cleaning every corner of the house, scrubbing away the memories that Lisa and Caleb had left behind. He rearranged furniture, added new decor, and even painted a few walls. It wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about making the space his own again. Mike also returned to hobbies he had abandoned during his marriage. He picked up his guitar, which had been gathering dust in the corner, and rediscovered his love for music. He started going on weekend hikes, enjoying the solitude of nature and the chance to clear his mind. Slowly but surely he began to feel like himself again. Reconnecting with friends was another step in his journey. During his marriage, Mike had let some friendships fade, focusing all his energy on work and maintaining his household. Now he reached out to those friends, meeting up for drinks and rekindling bonds that had been neglected. The laughter and camaraderie reminded him that he wasn't alone and that his life was far from over. He also threw himself into his work, not as an escape but as a way to regain control. With his renewed focus, he earned a promotion, further solidifying his independence and stability. As the weeks turned into months, Mike began to reflect on everything that had happened. Lisa's betrayal had hurt deeply, but it had also taught him valuable lessons about relationships, trust, and self-worth. One of the biggest realizations he had was how much he had sacrificed for the relationship without realizing it. He had put Lisa's needs above his own, giving her freedom and trust without expecting the same level of commitment in return. Looking back, he saw the cracks in their marriage that he had ignored, hoping they would fix themselves, but he also recognized that the betrayal wasn't his fault. Lisa's actions were a reflection of her choices, not his shortcomings. She had made the decision to lie, cheat, and mock him, and those decisions were on her. Mike resolved that in future relationships, he would set clearer boundaries and prioritize mutual respect. Love, he realized, couldn't survive without honesty and accountability. Through his journey, Mike learned that betrayal doesn't have to define you. It's easy to feel consumed by anger and heartbreak, but the only way to truly heal is to focus on yourself and your future. For anyone facing a similar situation, Mike offered 3 key pieces of advice. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't ignore the signs and don't let anyone make you feel crazy for noticing them. Gather evidence. Before confronting someone about betrayal, make sure you have proof. It not only protects you from gaslighting but also gives you the clarity to move forward with confidence. Prioritize self-respect. Betrayal can make you feel worthless, but remember that someone else's actions don't define your value. Reclaim your dignity by focusing on your own growth and happiness. As Mike stood on his back porch one year after the divorce, he reflected on how far he had come. The air smelled fresh and the world felt wide open, a stark contrast to the suffocating weight he had felt during those dark days of betrayal. He realized that, despite the pain, Lisa's actions had given him the opportunity to rebuild his life on his own terms. Mike wasn't the same person he had been when Amanda first knocked on his door to share her concerns. He was stronger, wiser, and more self-assured. Lisa's betrayal had tested him in ways he never imagined, but it also showed him the importance of resilience and self-respect. Love without respect is nothing but a lie, Mike thought to himself as he sipped his coffee, the morning sun warming his face. He had learned the hard way that no relationship could survive without trust and honesty, and he was determined to carry those lessons forward. To anyone watching his story, Mike had a final message. If you're going through something similar, know that you're not alone. You deserve love, respect, and loyalty, and if someone can't give you that, it's better to walk away. Trust yourself, prioritize your peace, and never settle for less than you deserve. If you found Mike's story as gripping as I did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Unheard Stories. Every week, we share real-life tales of betrayal, redemption, and strength, stories that make you think, reflect, and sometimes gasp in disbelief. And I want to hear from you. What would you have done in Mike's situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.